Hello dear students, hope you are well. Uh, in the last class we were discussing about completing sentence. Now we are going to complete our lesson on completing sentence. So we are going to learn about some more structures, more structural rules about this lesson. Today the structure which I am going to begin with, it's relative pronoun. So what are some very familiar relative pronouns to us, like the WH pronouns who, which, where, when, etc. Then that. This is also a relative pronoun. So how do we complete a sentence when there is a relative pronoun? Let's focus on that. So the three sentences. The man who came here was my brother. This is the place where I was born. This is the house where we live. Let's focus on the second and third sentence at first. At the second sentence, we see that if the incompleted part stops after where, then we are completing it with a full sentence like where I was born or where we live. Now here, the use of the tense depend upon the situation, depend upon the particular passage or particular clause you are following. For example, at the second sentence we see that we are writing where I was born. It is in the past tense, while we are saying that this is the house where we live. It is in the present tense. So we can't say that there is a very rigid distinction or very rigid rules of using the tense when we are completing a sentence where there is a relative pronoun. But what we can say is we must focus upon the unity of the meaning, the coherence of the sentence. Because when we are saying that this is the place where I was born, okay, it's an event which happened in the past. When I am saying that this is the house where we live, it's an event which takes place at the present. In both of the places, we see that the relative pronoun is used in between the particular sentence, and we see that a full clause is used after the relative pronoun. So this is very important, that in most of the cases, if the relative pronoun has been used in between the lines, then of course there will be a full clause. But here the relative pronoun itself has been inserted after the subject, that is the man who came here. So here we can't use a full sentence, that is a subject plus verb like these ones. That is, here we see that this is the place where I was born, a subject I, then was an auxiliary verb, and then born. It is what? It is a main verb. But here we cannot say same at the first sentence. That is, here we see that the sentence starts with the subject, the man. Then suddenly we find the relative pronoun. That is, who came here? Yes, who came here? Then I am saying that was my brother. Okay, fine. Here the subject is actually the man. So we need not to insert another subject here. Some more sentences like this can be. The house where you are living today once belonged to us. See, the house where you are living today. So this is another example of such kind of sentence where we see that the relative pronoun is used just after the subject. And if this sentence stops here, that is the house where you are living today, then you have to complete it with a clause where there will be a main verb. That is, once belong to us. But you need not to insert another subject here or you need not to use a full sentence with the common structure like subject plus verb plus object, because here we see that the relative pronoun has been used just in between the not in between the sentence, rather it is used just after the subject. There was a man who lived in this room alone. একজন মানুষ ছিল যে এই রুমে একা থাকত। Now this sentence has two particular important things, that is the word there. So it is introductory there, and again we see the relative pronoun who. This is used in between the sentence. When we are completing any sentence where the introductory there is used and at the same time relative pronoun is used, we must focus upon the tense. That is, if the particular clause having with this introductory there, it is in past tense, then of course the other part, it will be also in the past tense. That is, who lived in this room. This clause also, that is, lived in this room, this is also what? This is also in past tense. Another important factor regarding who, regarding the word who, the relative pronoun, let's see some sentences. Okay, so this is the box which I wanted, and this is the man who came here. Now, when I am saying that this is the box which I wanted, here this word which, it is rather followed by a subject, because which is referring to the object box, but who usually refers to the subject. That is, this is the man who came here. So here we do not have any other subject. Okay, so the difference between which and who, this should be remembered by us. There are a good number of clauses word if is used. That is, if is being used usually in the complex sentences. Now, how will we complete those sentences where if is being used? Let's see three particular structures. If you see it, you may inform me. Here we see that the clause having if, it is in the simple present tense. So if the clause which have this word if, it is in simple present tense, then the other part, that is the principal clause, will be there we will use may or can, or we can use will. May, can, will. If you see, you may inform me, you can inform me, or you will inform me. It depends upon the particular meaning, particular context of the sentence. But in the second sentence, we see that the subordinate portion, which has the word if, it is in the past tense. That is, if you saw it, you might inform me. So this is in simple past tense. So here, just what we are doing, look, here we have used the past form of see. Just the main verb of this see has been turned into past tense. So we will just turn this verb into past here. That is, this modal verb will be turned into past tense. That may will be turned into might. You might inform me. If you had seen it, you might have informed me. If you had seen it. So it is in the past perfect tense. When the portion will be in the subordinate portion will be in past perfect tense, it will be followed by the auxiliary verb might have, and then we will see that this thing, that is informed, the main verb will be certainly changed into past participle. So if you had seen it, you might have informed me. So let's have a reminder. Let's have a quick reminder. That is, if you see it, you may inform me. This is actually in present tense. When we are using the past form at the subordinate portion, then we will use might, we may use can, we may use could, we may use could. That is might, could, would. When we are using the past perfect tense at the subordinate portion, that is, if you had seen it, then what we will do is, you might have informed me. So we are using what? We are using the just the past perfect form of this might, that is might have. So here we have a past perfect form, had seen. Here we have another past perfect form, might have informed. So there is another if. What is that? Let's see. If I were you, I would do that. The thing is, what is the reason I am using the word where after this subject I? The reason behind using where after this subject I is, it's for unreal past, that is the past which is not real. Rather, we are thinking about it, we are imagining about it. Jodi ami tomar jagay hotam, ami eta kortam. Here, of course, we will use where, like we have used where in case of wish. You can remember in the previous class, that is, I wish I were a king. This is also a kind of unreal past. There is no reality in being a king. So in the same way, we are using the word if I were you, I would do that. Along with that, we have finished the structure of if. But there is again another conditional sentence which don't have the word if, but it is linked, like the structure like these ones. What is that structure? Let's see. Had I seen you, I would have told you. The structure is had I seen you. Had plus subject plus the past participle of the main verb and then object. At the subordinate portion, we have this structure. So at the principal portion, in the principal clause, we see that it will be subject plus would have plus the past participle of the main verb and then the object. I would have told you. So we will use would have in two cases. Earlier we have used would have or might have when we are using if plus if plus past perfect tense. Now when we see that it is itself a kind of past perfect tense structure, that is, the structure has been started with the word had, so definitely this will be followed again the would have phrase. So if we have this structure, that is had plus subject plus past participle, we will use subject plus would have plus past participle. Along with this, we have actually finished our discussion on the conditional sentences. So we have today learned up to now two things. That is the structures of the sentences where there is relative pronoun and the structure of the sentences where there are conditional phrases like if or had have been used. So let's move. While when we are using this word while, we are actually referring towards two particular actions which are happening simultaneously. They are happening simultaneously together. And usually past tense has been used in case of while. Now, what do we do when we see while in our question paper? Let's see. So here we see, while walking I saw a snake. While I was walking I saw a snake. What is the structural difference? The particular structural difference is when we are using while walking, then I am saying that I saw a snake, a full sentence at the principal clause portion. When I am saying while I was walking, again I am using I saw a snake. So at the principal clause portion there will be basically no change. So what are the changes here? The particular remarkable thing is what is being used or what form of verb is used after this word while. If the word while is followed, the word while is followed by a principal verb, then we will use directly main verb plus ing. That is, that principal verb, the form will be main verb plus ing. But if while is followed by a subject, then it will be a whole sentence, a total clause in past continuous tense. That is, I am saying that while I was walking, I saw a snake. Because we are using past continuous tense here, because while is being followed by a what? By a subject. So when we are using this phrase in spite of, so in spite of his poverty, he cannot buy a car. After this word in spite of, we are using the possessive form of the subject, that is his. Then we are using the noun in spite of his poverty. Then we are using a whole principal clause, that is he cannot buy a car. Again, when we are using in spite of, here we see that the possessive form of the subject is being used, that is his, but we are using here being, and then we are using an adjective poor, then we are using a whole sentence, a whole principal clause here. So when we are using the word in spite of, either it will be followed the possessive form of the subject plus noun, or it will be followed the possessive form of the subject plus being plus adjective. The question is, if in spite of is being followed not any to be verb, rather any to have verb, then what will we do? Or any other verb. Okay, fine. Let's see it. In spite of his having no money, he wants to buy a flat. তার কোনো টাকা পয়সা না থাকা সত্ত্বেও সে ফ্ল্যাট কিনতে চায়। Here we are using the structure which we have used in case of being, that is main verb plus ing and then the other portion. So in spite of his having no money, he wants to buy a flat. Here we see that the word having is being used, that is after in spite of we will use the main verb plus ing. Now let's see another sentence where we see that okay fine, there is no there is no having or being, there is a main verb, a very traditional main verb. What's that? In spite of his gaining much success in his sporting career, he had an early retirement. Let's focus on this structure. In spite of, after this phrase, we see that as usual the possessive form of the subject, that is his, then gaining. So the main verb plus ing will be always there after when we are using the phrase in spite of. That is, in spite of will be followed by the possessive form of the subject and then the main verb plus ing. In spite of his gaining much success in his sporting career, he had an early retirement. We see that this is a kind principal clause. He had an early retirement. We are talking about a certain sportsman who is very much successful in his career, but he has an early retirement. So when we are using the word in spite of, we actually follow this structure, that is in spite of plus the possessive form of the subject and then main verb plus ing. The very thing is, often we use the noun form instead of main verb plus ing plus adjective or any other object. The reason is, if we have the noun form of a particular adjective, for example, in spite of his poverty, he tries to live a luxurious life. Now here the word poverty is it can be transformed into an adjective, that is poor. The poverty has an adjective form, that is poor. So we can say that in spite of being poor. Instead of saying in spite of being poor, we are using the noun form poverty. But in this structure, where success itself is a noun and it is being used as a what? It is being used as an object. So here we cannot use any other adjective. Here we have to follow this particular structure, that is in spite of plus the possessive form of the subject plus main verb plus ing, then object and then the other part. And of course, instead of using in spite of, we can use the word despite. But despite is not a phrase. Often we make a mistake, that is, we say despite of. No, there is no despite of. There will be despite or in spite of. And surely the question setter can make a twist here, that is, in spite of and then we see what? Then we see the principal clause, he had an early retirement. So what's that? Then what will we do? Of course, we will fill this portion with the structure I have just taught. That is, after the word in spite of, we will use the possessive form of the subject, is, and then we will use the main verb plus ing, gaining, then we will use an object, gaining mark success. He had an early retirement, or surely we can use a to be verb, that is, in spite of being very successful. After the word being, there will be, of course, either if we use any verb, then it will be in past participle form, but if we use any adjective, if we use any other parts of speech, then of course it will be the adjective, that is successful. Being successful, successful is an adjective. So I think the discussion of in spite of is clear here. So focus upon these two sentences. Being an honest man, he did not take any bribe. I want the work being done. So what are the differences? Let's see. Here we are using either an adjective clause or we are using either an adjective phrase or adjective, that is being honest. You can use the word being honest, just the word honest, no problem. That is just an adjective, or an adjective phrase like very honest, or a noun phrase having an adjective, that is being an honest man. So if we see that, okay, fine, being is actually related to the subject itself, then after the word being we will use adjectives. But if being is used in the positive verb, that is after the object, then of course after being we will use what? We will use the past participle form of the main verb, that is here we are using done. So the structural difference is being, here being is used to refer to the subject itself, that is being an honest man. But here being is referring to the verb, that is the object, and it is in the positive verb. Okay, what are the positive verbs? Positive verbs are verbs where the task of the verb is performed by someone else, not by the subject. At the last class, we were talking about the thing that is some phrases and some structures where we have seen that after to there will be a main verb. But there are some phrases where we see to is present, but we use main verb plus ing. What are those? I have come here with a view to learning English. Here, with a view to, we see that, and after this with a view to phrase, we see learning English, not learn English, not to learn English, because the phrase is with a view to. I am getting used to tolerating all this. Getting used to, tolerating. Main verb plus ing again, because the phrase is getting used to. I am looking forward to listening what you say. So, listening what you say, not listen what you say. So again, this is main verb plus ing, because the phrase is looking forward to. Okay, so of course to will be followed by the main verb, but we must use these main verb plus INGs when we see these phrases that like look forward to, like get used to, like with a view to, and there are some other phrases where we will use main verb plus ing, like would you mind having a cup of tea? Here we see that after the phrase would you mind, we have main verb plus ing. I cannot help laughing. So here also we see laugh plus ing, main verb plus ing. So these phrases will be followed by main verb plus ing. You may ask that, sir, these are actually related to the rules of right form of verbs and we are learning completing sentence. But my dear, in English grammar we see that each and every structure, they are actually related to one another. Completing sentence is not an isolated thing. Rather, you have to know what verbs you have to use, where you have to use the correct pronouns. These things must be known to you. And even the rules of pronoun reference, they are also becomes very much important here. Like we see that when I am saying that I along with my friends am coming, not are coming. This is the expression of right form of verbs. But when I am saying that I along with will be followed by what? Along with will be followed by a singular verb. So best of luck, and I think that if you practice these rules at your home, then you will be more efficient in solving this question at your examination hall. And be safe. Allah Hafiz.